Hey geeks, this is Minx from AverageGEEK, and today I'm bringing you a countdown video? Weird. On Sunday, Once Upon a Time returns for Season 5, and I am super stoked. I've been going over some stuff that we found out about the season, and it's just fueled my excitement. And in doing so, I kind of started thinking about what would I like to see. We already know that we're going to see Merida from Brave. Brave is actually one of my favorite Disney movies. I think it's one of the best ones that they've made so far, in present day. Let's see, we're also going to see Camelot for the first time, so a little bit of Sword in the Stone, maybe a little, Black Cauldron-esque kind of feel to it. So that's kind of exciting. And we're also going to see a return of Mulan. And supposedly she's going to be exploring relationships. Now, if you picked up on some of the undertones from when Mulan was originally on the show, you might have an idea of where that might be going. If you didn't pick up on it, well, it'll probably be a surprise. Anyway, I started thinking, what characters is the show missing? It was originally going to be a top 5, but I couldn't narrow it down past 10. Well, I couldn't narrow it down to 10 until I pretty much took out all of the purely animal creatures. So I have kind of a top 10 most wanted human creatures, or people, I should say. Number 10 is a princess that most people want to see. We know she's probably going to end up on the show, and that's Tiana from Princess and the Frog. Dynamic character, adds even more diversity to the cast. Excellent choice. Not as far out there as some of the other choices I have on the list, and that's why she's at number 10. But she still made the list, so that's the important thing. Number 9 is actually a real-world princess. Well, kind of. My pick for number 9 is actually Pocahontas. Different in the scale that she was actually real, which might pose problems on how they could actually introduce her to the show. But I think it's another excellent choice. It also adds more diversity. As someone who actually has some Native American blood, it would be great to actually see that on screen in a fantastical manner, of course. Hopefully they would diverge slightly from how it was done in the actual animated feature, but it would still be kind of cool to see. And you don't really see a lot of people talking about Pocahontas. I'll admit, it was one of my least favorite of the animated movies, but I think there's still some merit to actually having her on the show. Speaking of which, given that Pocahontas colors with all the colors of the wind and is very much into nature, that actually leads into my next 2 picks. Number 8 moves us from the forest to the jungle with everyone's favorite monkey man, Tarzan. I think he would be a great addition to the show. They've got all these good-looking guys. They need someone who's more awkward in social interaction. You don't really get that. I think the character that probably emphasizes that the most is maybe Grumpy. And that's just because he's grumpy all the time. You need someone who isn't as sure about himself or how to interact with people. Tarzan would make a great fit. And there's plenty of actors who could play that. Long hair, possibly dreads, pretty well built, somewhat of a surfer type. Excellent. So many people to choose from. And I already know who his best friend could be. That's right. At number 7, I have the other jungle buddy, Mowgli. The Jungle Book was one of the real cornerstones of a lot of people's childhoods as far as the animated features went. You had Snow White, Cinderella, The Jungle Book. All of them were really integral movies, especially to me growing up. Mowgli just makes the perfect sense, and it would be really easy to just pair him up with Tarzan. I mean, yeah, sure, Tarzan was in the jungles of Africa, most likely, and Mowgli was in the jungles in India. But it wouldn't be the first time Disney's mashed things up. And besides, they'd have a lot of stuff to talk about, like how they hang out with animals all day and, swing from treetops. Could be worse. Number 6 is also a childhood favorite, but it's floating right now in the middle of my list. I feel that it's semi-inevitable that they're going to show up on the show, which is why they're actually kind of on the list, but it does kind of bring me a little bit of sadness to my heart. That would be Aladdin and Jasmine. I put them together because they're kind of they come as a package deal. They're a couple. I'd be bummed that it adds just another couple to keep track of on the show, and being that it's not one of what I would like to think of as the main 3, they'd probably be quickly lost in the shuffle, like Cinderella and her prince, Ariel and Prince Eric. They all just kind of were there for like a couple of episodes and then poof, gone into the rest of the, citizenship of Storybrooke. The part that makes me sad is, unfortunately, due to the loss of the great Robin Williams, who is one of my heroes, even to this day, you wouldn't have the right feel for whoever would take over the role as Genie, because you can't have Aladdin and Jasmine without Genie. I know that they're probably going to end up on the show at some point. I just hope that if they do introduce the Genie, whoever they pick has got to be the right person for the job. Congrats, guys! We finally made it in the top 5. Super exciting. The closer we get to 1, the more I get excited for Sunday. With that said, number 5 would probably be a semi-difficult choice in order to actually put into the show, but I think there's ways you could go about it. And that would be Jim Hawkins from Treasure Planet. Treasure Planet was a very underrated Disney movie. A lot of people have either never heard of it or didn't really give it the time of day. That said, I think it's a very good movie and it's very powerful. And being that it has to deal with space pirates, essentially, I'm pretty sure we can work that in with certain pirates we already know. And it's not like we haven't already seen the Jolly Roger flying through the air in Neverland, So that is my pick for number 5. Little tricky, though. Would they have to keep the spaceness? Or could they introduce a similar story without it being set even remotely in space exploration? Maybe something similar. Land-based, but still hunting for that epic treasure. Totally could pull Hook into things. I see so many possibilities. But like I said, tricky to work. Number 4 is another one that might be a little bit difficult to fit in. It all depends on how they decide to do it. It's also another couple pairing, but I think that's kind of a thing on Once Upon a Time, so I think we might be okay. My choice is actually Hercules and Megara. What might make it difficult is they haven't really played too much with gods and whatnot. I mean, they touched a little bit with Ursula and her relationship to her father, Triton. We all know that Triton is, in mythology terms, actually one of Poseidon's children. Helps him rule the seas and whatnot. They never really showed that in the Disney movies at all that I remember. But it still could be pretty tricky. Hercules is a lot more well known than Triton, as far as the god thing goes. But I think it would be awesome. I mean, I loved the interactions between Herc and Meg. especially because Meg had that sassy snarkiness against Hercules' boy next door Boy Scout. And if they could introduce that, that would be great, because I'm kind of sick of Prince Charming's, oh, it's got to do the right thing. I mean, yeah, last season we got to see him lie and whatnot and try and cover up things, but it wasn't bad enough for me. It wasn't... He never really struck me as a character that was solely good. He's one of those characters you could totally see doing something bad, but for the greater good. Whereas Hercules is literally like... I would compare him on the Boy Scout scale to Superman. He is the Boy Scout of the Disney World. Pretty much. My choice for number 3 is probably the one that'll probably get disagreed with the most, because it is a very odd choice, but I have my reasons, so hear me out. My choice at number 3 was actually Ichabod Crane from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Again, another maybe not so famous animated feature from Disney, but still has its own storybook lore outside of Disney. And I think they can pull a lot from that. I mean, Ichabod was socially awkward, loved mysteries, and let's face it, there's always some kind of mystery involved on Once Upon a Time. He would be great for if they were doing... every once in a while they get into this habit of doing almost a Monster of the Week kind of flavor. He would be great for stories like that. You could introduce the Headless Horseman as a new villain for half a season like they like to do, because, you know, they do that split season thing. That'd be an easy thing. Have him come in to be investigating some crazy messed up thing that's happening. He's the perfect detective character. I could see him being so awkward and working with Emma at the sheriff's office and probably driving David up the wall. It would be freaking great! And there's so many people who could play a tall, lanky, awkward guy. Think about it. Number 2 on our list, I picked just simply because I think it would be fun as hell. And that is Cuzco from Emperor's New Groove. I think it would be hilarious. It wouldn't require a whole lot of CGI, just a little bit, enough to turn him into a llama. You could have some fun little interactions between Rumpel and Yzma. Perhaps, you know, some kind of old fling or old competition with each other. You could get Patrick Warburton to come on and play Kronk, because let's face it, Patrick Warburton is amazing, and he also voices majority of the characters that we all love. It would be great. I'm sure there's plenty of younger actors, not like young actors like Henry Young, but young-ish actors who could totally pull off the snobby, kind of full of themselves Cuzco that we all know and love. I just think it would be hilarious, plenty of story opportunities, and it could totally span an entire half a season arc, since they like to do 2 arcs per season. Think about it. Yay! You hung in there and we made it to number 1. I'm super excited. I can't wait for Sunday to be here. So number 1 choice for human characters that I want to see on Once Upon a Time is also an odd choice. If you can't tell, I have some odd choices on this list. He's probably like the least likely that we'll actually run into, even over Ichabod. Just saying. But I have my reasons. I have my reasons for picking him at number 1, and I will get into those in a moment. My number 1 pick is actually Quasimodo from Hunchback of Notre Dame. The reason I picked Quasimodo is we need someone who can be a hero without having to be a pretty boy or a pretty girl. I love this show. I am practically obsessed with it. I am definitely a oncer through and through. But I think it's time for a side hero that isn't charming, wink wink, dashing, suave, you know, guy-linered up. Don't give me any hate, Hook fans, because Hook and Emma are like my favorite pairing in the entire series. But anyway, I think it'd be more representative of the feelings that people often have inside of them and give it a face. Not all of us, well, let's put it this way, all of us have bad days. All of us sometimes feel ugly, unless your head's completely up your butt, which I know a few people like that, but, you know, that's another story. But average people have those days where they just feel hideous, no one would want them, grotesque, you know, don't look at me, I should hide myself away. Quasimodo would be like a physical representation of that inner turmoil that we all go through at some point in our lives. And I think having him be a hero and show that you can get respect, you can have friends, you can be loved, you can be the hero of your own story. I think that would be an incredibly powerful message to add to the other messages of strength that they have going on the show. I mean, they have super strong female characters, which is greatly influential on young girls. They have male characters that are both strong and supportive of the female characters. They don't see them necessarily as threats to their masculinity, but as super awesome compliments to it, which is a great message for young male viewers. I think what we need is something a little different, something showing you don't have to be this amazing looking person to be a hero. And I think that's one message that's kind of lacking from that. And I love this show. And I just think that Quasimodo would be an amazing way to show that. It's definitely a in-your-face, kick to the gut way to do it, but hey, it's television. That's how they do things. And we all know that ABC and Once Upon a Time, the writers, are really good at giving us cliffhangers and crazy WTF moments. So, anyway, that's my top 10. Tell me what you think. Do you agree with the list? Do you not? Who do you think should be on there? Leave comments below. As always, like, subscribe, and share. You could win a subscription box for a month once we get to a certain number of subscribers. And as always, later geeks.